So I'm Karen Foreman. I'm a global partner leader at AWS. I focus on partner strategy and enablement for partners in the media supply chain space and Gen AI. I am excited to be here with Kathleen and Peter. So let's kick this off. Some excitement. Peter, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your role, what you do at Audible, and the work you're working on.
Thank you, Karen. It's a pleasure to be here. Kathleen, thanks for sitting with me. My name is Peter Salvia. I'm a senior technical program manager for Audible's systems development engineering team under the Tech Ops org at Audible. I support a team of engineers who build and maintain platforms across our global business, and our customers include the content, marketing, legal, product, and more teams than that too.
That's great. And Kathleen, tell us a little bit about your role. And it's really interesting because not only you are by title the CEO, but you work across a very large organizations and very small in broadcast, sports, other areas of publishing and such. So tell us a little bit about your role.
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Backlight. We are building tools that help you unlock the value of your media at scale, help you find it, search, understand, and activate that content. A couple of the products are Iconik, which is our media asset management and collaboration tool, and Wildmoka, which is our activation layer, and also used by broadcasters to take live broadcasts and clip and distribute it at high velocity and scale. We do serve a wide range of customers, broadcasters, media and entertainment, but also an interesting growing segment for us is media teams within corporate brands as well. So we see a pretty wide range of needs and use cases across our products.
Great. And with so many products, you all have also acquired products like under the Backlight umbrella. And so this question is going to be a little bit of a two-parter. The question is, as customers, we see system consolidation. We see people who wanting to pull their workloads together. They may have multiple tools under their workload, as well as you as a product company. You've purchased a lot of companies and you have to bring your tech stack together. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to bring consolidation together, both in your own tech stack, but also what are you seeing from your customers from wanting to pull their workflows together and unify their content supply chain?
Yeah, so for us, we don't want to integrate for integration's sake. There was 5 different products and we kind of tested the different customer needs and overlaps and how that mapped to our products. And so we've decided to integrate where there's a need to continue the workflow and the solutions we are providing for a single user. And that's why we've been actually investing a lot of time right now in using our Wildmoka tech in our Iconik platform and extending it beyond just a media asset management solution and into distribution. From a customer standpoint, I think of it in 2 buckets for consolidation. One is a user that has tons of tools, tons of content, can't find anything. It's very difficult for those tools to talk to each other, and therefore difficult for the team to do work together. And so they're bringing all of that together under one operating layer, which is often Iconik, and they're plugging and playing with the other tools that are specialized. But really this gives them a way to have more seamless handoffs. And then the other bucket we're seeing that's, I think, coming up more and more with AI is companies that made an intentional decision to be siloed, both from a tech standpoint, but even teams and where their media lives, suddenly realizing the value of their media is that scale and the accessibility and the understanding of that media. And so they're putting in a layer above everything so that they can take advantage of that deeper understanding and activation and be in a position to take advantage of AI, where you really need that foundational layer, organized, governed, and really accessible to be able to take advantage of some of these experimental tools where they might want to plug and play and change over time as they evolve pretty rapidly.
We're going to come back to that organizational layer, but let's ask Peter a question. Peter, companies themselves are experiencing consolidation and workflows, and how do we optimize? And I think you work on a global project. You have podcasts coming in globally on what you're working on. And you had to pull a large user community together to work on the Backlight product. People in multiple countries globally around the world. What kind of solution guidance did you have to provide your customers, your internal customers? What guardrails did you have to put in place? And speak to the complexity or the opportunity that change management brought.
Thank you, Karen. You're absolutely right. It was a vast amount of global stakeholders that we were tasked with supporting. And each of these teams is highly efficient, highly talented, and they have ways of working that are already established. So a step that I like to emphasize that I think a lot of times can get skipped or not considered is asking them what works for them, asking them what they're doing already and why they like it. And then when we evaluate a tool like Iconik, we can show them, how does this tool leverage what you're already doing and enhance your workflow? You're already a highly effective team. We already appreciate the work that you're doing. We're not trying to break anything. We want to enhance what you're doing. And when we see the tooling that Iconik provides, being able to connect AI, being able to use regionalized S3 buckets, these are enhancements that help our teams work even more efficiently and enhance their ability to create outputs that help us reach an even wider audience.
So can you speak to, without giving away any secret sauce, can you speak to sort of, you put guidelines in place. Can you speak to some of the guidelines you put in place, and how did you create a global environment, content coming in from so many different places? How did you create the guidelines so that everyone was sort of operating sort of under the same process and procedures?
Absolutely. So I think some of the things that we put in place was identifying what the organizations were within the company and identifying what their goals were. Once they had their own ways of working clearly defined within the collections that Iconik provides, that helped put things on rails, guardrails, so to speak, so that they could access the content on the regionalized S3 buckets where they were working. So if you had teams in Japan or teams in France or teams in the East Coast of the United States, they could access their content quickly, rapidly, uploading and downloading as needed. That content would still be accessible by any team in the other global regions. I think some of the other best practices that we put in place was giving a consistent way of requesting access for new users, making it self-service, and also allowing our partner vendors to be able to access securely as well.
I think Peter's got one of the most successful programs I've seen rolled out. And he's probably not going to toot his own horn, but I think there was buy-in from the top around the business metrics that they were going to try to move, but buy-in from the users, making sure their workflows were intact and then unlocking incremental value for them. But tons of enablement and education, right? Like they can self-serve to so much information so they don't feel trapped and they don't feel like they're being held hostage. So I think, supporting your users through a rollout like that is incredibly important. And the change management piece is almost as important as your tool selection.
Yeah. And I would build on that a little bit and say, when you're managing the change management aspect of taking on a new tool, showing your customers their content in the tool and how it looks with the new capabilities and the new features that they haven't yet experienced, that helps them feel much more comfortable at a quicker rate. They're not looking at an apple and saying, but I want an orange. They're looking at their audiobooks and they're saying, this is how I can interact with this tool, and this is how I can leverage all of the features that it brings to me. Balancing that with top down once is finding a middle way to success, because everybody at the end of the day has to be happy.
And to double click into like some of the things that we just heard Kathleen and Peter say, I think it's really important. That top down approach and getting that user buy-in is really, really important. Nobody wants to, use new tools, new processes, system consolidation without being sort of have that user buy-in. So fact that you've been a marquee customer to do that for Backlight and the guidelines that you put in place are really, really instrumental. And to kind of sort of also share my previous career to AWS, I was at HBO. I spent 12 years there. And when we rolled out one of our first content management systems, we went to the more difficult users first. And when we went to those users, we got their buy-in. And by having those users use the system, work on the system, really give us feedback, it was almost that top-down approach where we took out some of the friction points just by having them involved. So I give you guys a lot of kudos for that approach. Kind of going into a little bit of another direction. Kathleen, you're a product company. You have multiple solutions under you. You mentioned Wildmoka. You talk to Ftrack. You have Iconik. You try to probably build for many customers. You have sports customers. You have broadcast customers. You have studios, publishers. How do you maintain core features and functionality that you can service, but also be bespoke and really create a custom experience so your customers really can use the tool in almost like a Swiss Army knife, flexible way?
Sure. So I think there's how the tool was built and functions, and then how we continue to iterate on the tool are kind of the two considerations. One, it's an API first platform, storage agnostic, works with any storage you want to bring, and therefore doesn't have to disrupt your workflow. And then there's a core amount of problems we're solving with the product we offer today. And then through the API and integrations can bring in proprietary data systems, other tools that folks like, send information back and forth. And therefore it's kind of endlessly flexible, and really, really powerful. And so we are just always building in mind of that extensibility. And we're lucky to have a very rich partner ecosystem that solve for solutions that aren't in our core, and therefore we're not going to go down the path of developing those solutions. The other part is from a bespoke and custom standpoint. We obviously get a lot of feature requests. To build a scalable platform, you have to consider if it will be a scalable feature. And that means working in an environment that is large and larger amounts of assets and scales to all your users, but B, not building features that are only going to be used for one use case. So having a pretty strict filter around what actually makes it into the platform and solves a use case for your entire user base, not just a single customer. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck maintaining those things and really not providing the right experience.
And if I haven't told you this enough, Kathleen, the API first approach for Iconik, not for our users who are using the platform every day, but for the engineers who are building and maintaining it, they are so happy when they see the flexibility and the specificity of the API. Because building and maintaining a platform that's so capable, API first is just a huge win for them. I think the other part that I want to make sure I tout, and Kathleen give you a personal thank you, is they also have a customer first mentality where if I come to Kathleen and say, there's this one feature that'd be really important, Kathleen listens. And that's important. We wanted to see documents, in a preview. And a lot of customers saying, can we just see the Word document? Can we see, other than a PDF, can we see an Excel sheet? We just wanted to see what it looks like. And I said, Kathleen, this one would be a big deal. And sure enough, she came through, and thank you so much. Those two things are a 1-2 punch that are hard to beat.
My pleasure.
What is your process? It's an interesting question. What is your process for bringing in customer requirements and sort of using making your tool a Swiss Army knife and being able to, do you have user group meetings? Do you evaluate the features? Sort of how do you look at those new feature sets coming into your product?
So a lot of our customers have direct relationships with even the founders of the business, but also our customer success teams, and have ongoing conversations because they're often starting with a very small project and then rolling out to other use cases, other teams, et cetera, et cetera. So we're very dynamically involved there, and we hear the needs of the customers kind of one by one. The team collects that feedback. We look at where there's patterns or better, like more impact, with those requests, and then kind of prioritize based on those things. And then shows like this are honestly the most valuable thing, to be honest with you. We're meeting, 300 customers in a row. And so you'll hear what are the common things folks need, what are they most excited about, where are they feeling the pain the most, and use that for some prioritization as well.
And participating in the collaborations that Iconik and Backlight facilitate, that's a big win for our teams as well, because it provides opportunities to learn what other people are doing and work together on things we didn't know that we would.
We do a fun event with some other customers related to Peter's team, and everybody comes in, presents what they've built on top of Iconik, and it's like a sharing opportunity. We learn about things that they're trying to solve for. They teach each other. So it's a really nice open dynamic.
That's great. So a session would not be a session if we didn't talk a little bit about Gen AI or agentic workflows or things around that. Peter, for you, Audible has a lot of tools, a lot of technology. They use Backlight, but you also use tools from AWS like Recognition, Transcribe. Can you speak to how you use those tools and some of the workflows that you're working on with them?
Absolutely. And a consistent aha moment for our creatives who are working with thousands and thousands of audio assets is when they see Amazon Transcribe connected to their audio assets and they can quickly receive a transcription and then search for a word or a phrase through the filter search in Iconik. It takes them directly to their audio asset at the time code is being said, and they've saved, I can't tell you how many hours. It just helps them to leverage the content and be creative and not focus on where is it and does it say what I need it to say. Having the words next to the audio playing back in an interface is a game changer.
And if you can speak to, does all that metadata get stored back in Iconik, or how does that work? And does that all become searchable metadata so that you can get to that exact asset you're trying to get to?
I mean, metadata is something in addition to the AI that I could talk to for far too long. I think, what Iconik facilitates is metadata views and fields, and you can customize the fields to whatever your business use case need is. So if you have a global team working one way in one region successfully and another global team working similarly but has slightly different metadata based on language or key performance indicators, they have the flexibility to create those fields the way they want, put them into a view, and then bulk update them. That takes away the work of managing tables or spreadsheets, and it puts the metadata right next to the asset as you're working with it. And it's just another way to sort through tens of thousands of assets quickly based on the tag that you want to see and find what you're looking for again.
Great. And because you're geographically dispersed, you also have storage that is geographically dispersed, correct?
We do. We're getting all the points here, Karen. This is fun. I can't say how helpful S3 is as the storage backbone with these globally dispersed teams. Because again, optimizing for teams that are in the UK, that are in France and Germany, or in South America, or East Coast or West Coast, the upload speeds matter. Anybody in the audience would probably look at me and say, have you tried uploading a terabyte of data from your desktop to the cloud before, and how long does that take? I know I have. I'm trying to max out my home internet connection so it can go as fast as possible. Having the S3 bucket close to you makes a tremendous difference. And S3's ability to facilitate that, and Iconik's ability to bring your own storage to the platform, that's a big deal.
So this one we'll toss back to you, Kathleen. How are your customers approaching the connection between managing content and actually distributing it across multiple platforms?
I think with AI and with all these opportunities, what we're hearing from a lot of people is they want to, I think we like that they are moving toward trying to drive incremental revenue and incrementality from each piece of content that they have. The first step of that is obviously being able to find everything you have and understanding where it is and having access to it. And then the second is really repurposing it. So thinking about how do you optimize that for different channels, different audiences. And I think with different AI tools at play now, it's really personalization beyond that. So how do you take something a human used to do, which was take one piece of content and turn it into 5, and suddenly you can make it 1,000 different versions of that content based on a lot of other data that you have at your fingertips to really drive performance. So I think we're seeing a lot more desire to really unlock the value of an archive and the content that you've already produced instead of just focusing on making lots and lots of content. And so that when we're thinking about the platform, it's really enabling that, which is really, again, having that visibility and understanding of what you've got, and facilitating seamless integrations with tools that might allow you to manipulate that content and reuse it more effectively.
A recent stat came out from AWS recently that 87% of Gen Z is consuming content on some sort of a mobile device. And of that content, they're consuming it in so many different ways, audio ways, video ways. Is that changing the way you look at your technology, how you deliver your technology?
Absolutely. We already have, I think Wildmoka was very powerful because it could take a live stream and automatically generate lots of clips that are optimized for delivery in different platforms, but also looking at the content itself and saying, how do I want to rearrange this context so when somebody's consuming it on TikTok or on a different device, looks like it was made for that device, and it has the right fonts and the heads are in the right place, and it's not just a cropped version of the original content. So we've already had solutions in place that facilitate that, and we're continuing to invest on making that simpler and simpler. And then we see customers that then go and create content natively for those platforms as well. But this is a really great first step, is thinking about what needs to be true in that content, how long does it need to be, what does it need to look like, and how do you do that really, really quickly, because time is money on those platforms as well. So we're definitely thinking about making that simpler and taking a lot of manual processes out for our users.
So one thing that's changed quite a bit in the last year is the ability to semantically search archives. And you just mentioned earlier how archives are becoming revitalized a little bit. Is that changing the way your customers, Kathleen, are interacting with your platform when they're looking at new platforms, new content types, more personalization?
Definitely. I think the expectation is people want to be able to just say what they mean and get the results. So we think of that in a few parts. One is the enrichment of the content itself so that it is searchable, and using different contexts we have in the system to create that metadata that then becomes searchable and actionable. The other part of that is really the natural language piece. So we have really sophisticated and powerful search, but it's very technical to use. And so taking a step out and allowing somebody to ask in real language and then translating that to the right search so that it feels much simpler for them. And I think the third part, though, is really with AI and all that buzz, people believe that there's something they can find in their archive that they didn't know was there. And how do we empower them to come up with what does that mean? Because I think people are experimenting right now. And so the best thing we can do is just make it more and more understood and accessible and give you a deeper understanding of the content at your fingertips. Sometimes that means people looking at transcripts and tying that to audience performance and then iterating on the type of content they're making. And sometimes that means, B-roll or finding something that's very of the moment when it's trending on TikTok.
So taking us back to like some technology, are there some themes that you can share with us that you're hearing just from the last 2 days at NAB that are different than themes that maybe you heard last year at this time?
I think for us, it's been, if you take that AI thread, it was first like, oh my God, what's happening? Then it was, I have to have an AI vendor in my tech stack. And now it's really, I have to future-proof because we are going to have to do more and more in the spirit of, say, agentic media workflows in the future. And so what foundation do I need to put in place today to make sure that tomorrow I'm prepared to take advantage of any other tech that comes to my fingertips? So we're seeing a really big demand for that foundational layer, much deeper data understanding, and people want to have the opportunity to be more data-driven in their media decisions. They don't want to take the creativity out of it, but they want to empower folks to make more informed decisions. And so that data component has become more and more critical.
Yeah. I think as a strategist for at AWS, I think the data-driven decisions is something we're seeing as a significant pattern. We see a lot of archives. People have tons of archives, but it's expensive to migrate those archives. It's expensive to digitize those archives. So they're really looking at those data points. What content are the different the geographical regions looking at? What content are different demographics looking at? I would imagine that both of you are experiencing a creative burst as well, where you can create curated content experiences for your customers based on the fact that your content is accessible. You can search on it semantically, natural language query. Can you speak to anything in that space of how consumer behavior is changing as a result?
Yeah, I think consumers are just expecting more and more to feel native, right? And so generic content doesn't resonate. Things that don't look like they were optimized for a platform doesn't resonate. They want to consume content wherever they feel it is the most appropriate, and it's no longer enough to be in a single format on a single platform. You are now also servicing a more global audience. So overnight, I think a lot of teams have become globally distributed. And what does that mean for translation and context and what resonates in that region as well? So there's a lot more to learn to, I think, optimize for that global delivery as well.
And I would say for our users, internal and our partners who are utilizing the Iconik platform, we see tremendous growth in the use of the S3 storage as a centralized storage for all of the work that they're collaborating on. By keeping everything in an S3 pool, and what Iconik does is it makes it basically invisible to the users if the file is on one S3 bucket or another. It just appears as an Iconik asset. This is part of the magic that's happening to me, because a user doesn't know if it was uploaded from New Zealand, uploaded from Germany, or uploaded from Newark, New Jersey. It all appears in the same place and is accessible to the teams that have the access granted to them. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I was just going to add that because of that, the accessibility is demanded by all these teams across the globe. Regardless of where they are, they want to be able to access everything they have. You need quite a lot of governance and control to make that safe, especially in the world of AI when people want to be reusing this content. And so having the right level of protections and controls and access, which Peter knows well,
that's part of his guardrails he put in place.
Exactly.
We have about 3 to 5 minutes left. Any questions from the audience? Well, we'll be around for a few minutes if anyone has questions. We'd love for you to engage if anyone does. There's another question coming up. I think Peter, Kathleen, and I feel we could talk about this subject for hours. So hopefully this was what benefit for everyone as well. And we want to thank you all for coming, because this is what makes this really valuable for us, is having that engagement with you as the audience. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.